Living an authentic life is like getting together and pushing Sisyphus's stone, like pushing a boulder up an unending hill. You know it is tough, but you still do it because you feel that is the only way of love in this given moment. But when you go about the path with full honesty, the definition of love or pushing the Sisyphus stone has changed yet again. It is about taking it alone again. There is a source eternal quote: love is about doing the hard thing, even if it might seem nearly impossible to accomplish. Earlier, the hard thing was to reach that level of involvement and attachment. And now it is about going about and staying detached again. Wow. This seems like it has come from some kind of an overwhelm, almost kind of a breaking of a heart or an overwhelm that has made the writer think a lot. Living an authentic life is like getting together and pushing Sisyphus's stone. I'm sure many of you might know the story of Sisyphus, the rock that he has to push. The way Albert Camus has categorized it, he says that life is like a journey of a person who has to push a very heavy boulder continuously, relentlessly on a very steep hill. And it's not just that the boulder is very heavy, it is also that this hill is like an unending expanse of heights, new heights coming after the other. And there are many things in this. The first thing is that the boulder being so heavy and you having to lift it upwards, it means that you have to keep this momentum. The second thing is that if you stop this boulder, the things that you have, it is symbolic of it. And if you stop, this boulder comes down and runs on your own body. The third thing is that he says that although you see that it is such an arduous task to live like this, to have to carry such a heavy burden all through their life, still it is something that gives him the meaning. It is what gives life its meaning. To be able to carry this load. And Camus says that one must imagine Sisyphus happy. Maybe it is the predicament that we, all of us, find ourselves stuck in. Is it not true in a way that we see ourselves in such a situation that you have to carry the burden of responsibilities on your shoulder in order for your strength to be increased? It is not without carrying the burden of responsibilities or the things that love tells you to do that you see yourself evolve. You see yourself grow, you see yourself progress, and it is not rarely without having to take kind of a responsibility. for yourself, for others. Now, what the writer has said over here in the very first paragraph, he is in a way trying to begin at a point where a person sees that okay, you have to carry responsibilities, you have to carry this Sisyphus's rock, and it is not for yourself. A person usually starts on a journey, maybe as a part of a community, maybe as for their family. The community might still come later down the process. They started with the immediate family, their own, you could categorize it as selfish desires or selfless desires, it does not matter. But then you have to begin at that point. This way of love, this following of this path, alternatively, this path has also been called as walking on a knife's edge. It keeps bleeding you. It takes away from you what you thought was essential, and yet you have to do it. This very path, you know it is so important, and you keep treading on it. And then, as you go about it and you feel a bit accomplished or successful, there comes another revelation. And this revelation is not easy to absorb. Firstly, showing that kind of an involvement or attachment to a particular cause was not easy in itself. You had to get yourself together. You had to learn a lot of skills. You had to become a workhorse. You had to go through a lot of routines, a lot of trials, and a lot of tribulations. But then, walking on the path, you see that many people who you started walking with, they are not coming with you anymore. They either get lost on the path, they either see their purpose to be different from you. It does not relate with them anymore, or it is not in their interest to have walked in your shoes. And this is the revelation, this is the big opening, that you see that now that you have used the fuel of attachment or involvement, you have to walk ahead without their help. And it is not something bad, or it is not something which is unfair, or it is not something which is unfortunate for you. If you have walked this path with honesty, you will see such things happening, and you will see them, and you will have to act upon them, and your own honesty or truthfulness will make you do it too. Because otherwise, you trying to keep them with you, or you wanting them to follow the same path or the same boulder carrying which you were doing, is otherwise coming from a selfishness, a desire of not looking out for the interest of the other. And your own honesty, your own truthfulness, your own devotion towards your journey will make you see this and make you continue this journey. and it is about taking it alone again. You learned everything about the science of attachment, of involvement, of combined action, how powerful it could be, how gratifying it could be, how there was someone to give you an easy validation even before the trickle of doubt arose in your mind. How easy it was, or how comfortable it might have been if it would have continued in that way. And then you see that your path is again of learning the science of detached action, how to go about it without getting too entangled. Here is where the previous quote from Source Eternal comes in very aptly into the picture. That love, it is about doing the hard thing, even if it might seem nearly impossible to accomplish. Earlier, you thought that getting involved or getting attached to the highest. I'm not talking about getting attached to necessarily a person. It is about getting attached to a great purpose, something that you see as highest. Maybe you find that in a person too, but it is very rare. Majorly, it is about becoming attached to something which is high, something which will take you through to the higher echelons. And I know this might be sounding too philosophical, or it might be too esoteric, or something which is so far fetched. What is higher? What is this? Is this some kind of a higher calling? Is this some kind of abduction by aliens? What is this? It is referring to what you see as your cycles right now. Maybe you see in your life that you are having a cycle of attachment, or if you are having a cycle of neediness, or if you are having a cycle of procrastination. So, going from neediness to having that abundance in your mind of being able to accept a lack as well, not always having that, like having necessarily the sight of a person or an object in front of you. Or when we talk about attachments, we see that it is about having the ability, if you are not able to leave those attachments completely, just even having that honesty and being able to attach yourselves to something higher which will also transform you, so that the three examples which I gave you recently, you could maybe try and break out of those cycles. And this clinging to something which will take you out of your current cycles is what can be easily referred to as the higher thing over here. So it does not have to be something very metaphorical or something like a spiritual angst that has been given birth in you. It can be something very practical. And the writer, he ends it by saying that earlier the hard thing was to reach that level of involvement. it is also not a great thing to be completely detached. Let us go into the science of detachment for a bit. We consider the saints, mystics, or gurus, or great people to have a great sense of detachment in themselves. That you are from the world but not of it. But this very detachment can also become something which is not used in the greatest way possible. Like our mind is always ready to take the path of comfort. We can bring down anything, any high principles to the lower level. If we are not coming or running ourselves from the right center. Similarly, what happens with detachment? We see that detachment is such a great quality to have, but it often also becomes an excuse for not doing the right action. When you see what is good for you in life and you have to traverse that path, and you still use the excuse of it not really affecting you, when in reality it does, then you can see that you have used a kutark, a bad logic, to avoid action. That is where detachment can also become the killer of correct action, the killer of dreams, the killer of hope, and in the end, the killer of love. And then at such a time, it becomes very important to let go of this detachment also. For you to see what the higher transformative action is, get yourself involved. And as a result, transcend what is limiting you. Get involved, get attached if you have to. For the correct cause, it is not wrong. And that's why the writer in the last line, he says, earlier the hard thing was to reach that level of involvement. Coming from that state of detachment, it was harder to reach that level of involvement for you. And now that you have become involved, you have walked the path for a bit, you have seen the scenery, you have shared great moments, and you are attached to this work in itself. We also talked about how the definition of work can change. Right now, you saw in a situation that detached working was really not helping you. It was adding to your cycles, it was not letting you break free. And then you saw all of a sudden that you need to traverse a different way. You need to move ahead from where you are. You need not be involved in the same way of working. And we talked that it is only through honest inquiry or honest indulging in the work that you will be able to come to this realization. And having seen that it is not the same way of work anymore, you have to keep shifting. You have to stay alive to it. And when you see that maybe you have to take that transition of going towards a detachment again, and you still do it, and it is now your own stone. It's not Sisyphus's stone anymore, but it's your own stone to carry, it's your own burden to take forward. Because you have lived truly, because you have seen what the correct action is. Clarity brings about conscious action. And I hope that you are, when you walk this path with honesty, you are able to see what this conscious action has in store for you, and also that you are able to exhibit the courage to walk on it.